A glow up is when a player's presence just changes, whether it's on the football pitch or off. The way they receive the ball, it's cleaner, it's more confident. They're looking up after they receive the ball, they're looking around. What options do I have? They don't look like their once shelled self. The way they move on the pitch is clearer. The way their team uses them, they're more of a focal point rather than, just another player. And most importantly, people are talking about them. That's what makes a glow up in football, in my opinion. And I think one of the main studies of a player going through a glow up this season has to be Casemiro. Because once upon a time, Casemiro was absolutely washed. In other words, he was, leaving the game of football. At one point, we were screaming to Saudi, come and buy him, please. Man United need to be freed of this slow, sluggish centre midfielder that is being paid hundreds of thousands of pounds per week after his career that he had with Real Madrid, which was so successful. And now he's contributing nothing into this Manchester United side. However, this season, something has happened to Casemiro. This is not the same guy. He has gone through some sort of glow up, locked in, really honed in on the diet. Yeah, he's cut out the burgers. There ain't no more burgers. I remember when people were claiming that Casemiro was just overweight, obese. How can you have an obese central defensive midfielder? That don't even make sense. I don't know one obese central defensive midfielder in the history of football that did well. Genuinely. Because the position of a central defensive midfielder is one of the most demanding. They got to get up the pitch and down. They're not just one of these anchors anymore. In modern football, a central defensive midfielder is essentially just a box-to-box. And for a while, discourse around Casemiro wasn't even really about tactics. I remember Jamie Carragher saying, leave the football before the football leaves you. Jamie Carragher right now has probably got Casemiro in his FPL team. Yeah? Captained. Because some of the performances that I've seen, just the other day, Manchester United won 3-2 against Fulham. And in the game, I believe that Casemiro got an assist, a no-look pass assist. And I think he even scored in the game too. He was instrumental to Manchester United getting this comeback victory against a Fulham side that had, made a comeback in the game themselves before Sesko eventually scored the winner late on in the game. He is no longer washed. He has washed himself off. He went in the shower and got rid of the labels that people were putting on him. They were sticking labels on him and he said, nah, I'm still that guy that won them Champions Leagues in that Real Madrid side with the GOATs. I was in that midfield with Modric and Kroos. And now you got to respect me even if I've made this move to Manchester United that people have doubted. And here's the truth. As an older midfielder in football, you don't glow up by taking the game by storm, scoring goals, doing assists. You glow up by maintaining your position on the pitch. Because with years in this game, he's got the awareness to be more, better positioned, better protected and more decisive, especially being paired in a midfield with the likes of Kobbie Mainoo. He needs to be that guy that Kobbie Mainoo can look to and say, yeah, I got Casemiro by my side. I'm confident. I can make a mistake or two and rely on Casemiro to bail me out. And in recent games when these two have been paired together, that's been the case. Kobbie Mainoo has had Casemiro's back. Casemiro has had Kobbie Mainoo's back. And essentially, they have formed this incredible duo in the central defensive, central midfield area of the pitch, especially behind the likes of Bruno Fernandes. And Bruno Fernandes is another player that essentially he's not going for a glow up. He's been consistent for season on, season end for Manchester United, but they've just been a wrecking ball, up and down, like a roller coaster. Each and every year, highs and lows, and Bruno Fernandes has most of the time been a constant in the team, no matter what. But essentially, Casemiro has glowed up. And he's also become a direct threat in the air. There's been multiple times this season where he scored from a header. I think the other day, Manchester United themselves on YouTube dropped a full compilation of all Casemiro's headed goals. He's affecting games in decisive areas when Manchester United need him most. And it's like he's gone from playing with chains tied to his feet to them being unlocked. And he's been put in this sort of regime where he's actually respected under Michael Carrick. Because Michael Carrick knows, what it's like to play in the same position as Casemiro, as one of the best, defensive midfielders in the Premier League history. Like Manchester United having a midfielder in this transitional period in their club with a new manager that can identify the tempo of a game and reconstruct their play is essential. And it's one of the best things about this Manchester United side that has been taking over the league since Michael Carrick's arrival, or replacement arrival over Amorim. It's just been 3 games and we have seen brilliant play, confident play. And despite them still conceding, Casemiro has been instrumental. And he's announced that he's obviously leaving Old Trafford at the end of the season. So it's like each and every game he's going in as a master teaching his disciple, Kobe Mainu being the next involved. Because Casemiro, every time he's replaced in a game, it's Ugarte that comes in. And as someone that's been watching these games, it's clear to see the difference between an Ugarte and a Casemiro. An Ugarte and a Casemiro is like, I don't even know, it's hard to even compare these two. It's like a bronze on FIFA compared to a rare gold. That's what it is. These two players cannot even be compared. And if Manchester United, go into next season without replacing Casemiro, they might be finished already. Because he's been that important in these few games that we've seen Manchester United actually play good. Whether it was against Manchester City, Casemiro was amazing. Whether it was against Arsenal, Casemiro was there too. Whether it was against Fulham, Casemiro. Like, just watch one of these newer Manchester United games, watch the next one, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's weird because the next player on this list that I have is also kind of a Manchester United player. Marcus Rashford. I don't know if there's been anyone that's really honed in on what Marcus Rashford has done since going on loan to Barcelona, but he's been special. He's been amazing. He's been key for Barcelona, especially when Rafinha was out injured. And I think out of all the glow-ups that I have on this list, Rashford's is the most human one. It's one that we all knew was, going to happen. We knew the ability that Rashford has had for multiple seasons on season end, but it's just the environment that he was in, the toxic environment he had to get out of. And eventually he's been strutting his stuff, in Spain where it really matters. Because at his lowest points, Rashford didn't look like a bad player. He just looked like a player that was carrying a lot of noise. A lot of different opinions were filling up his head each and every game that he was going into for Manchester United. Whether it was his move to Aston Villa, where we saw some sparks of brilliance, coming back to Manchester United just wasn't really an option. So eventually Manchester United sent him out to Barcelona, where he could actually make an impact in all competitions in a new country, in a new land, sun beaming, new fans, a more supportive ecosystem around him. And you've seen time and time again, whether it was early on at the start of this season, where Rashford came back to England playing in St James Park against Newcastle for Barcelona and absolutely turned over Newcastle by himself. He ruled the entire game. I made an entire segment about it in a video that I made, and he just took over. Like, I thought it was AI. I thought it was artificial intelligence that was colluding Rashford's brain, but it was really just Rashford coming back home to England and showing that he is still the Marcus Rashford that we all knew him as. And I think you can tell when weight is lifted off a player's shoulders because they start to play with their chest puffed out. They demand the ball. They go into areas on a pitch where they know they will receive the ball. They don't hide behind defenders. They want the ball. And that's what Rashford has shown ever since joining Barcelona. Whether it's been starting in full 90 minutes or coming on as a cameo, coming on as a substitute, still willing to make an impact. There's been multiple occasions this season where Rashford has come off the bench and still made impact for Barcelona when him and the likes of Ferran Torres comes on. And Marcus Rashford has started 12 games, getting 6 assists and 4 goals in them 12 games that he's started, but also 20 games that he's featured in. Showing that he has been able to make impact in a side that doesn't really need his attacking prowess. They got the likes of Rafinha, they got a Lewandowski, they got a Lamine Yamal, and still. And there's been times this season where Rashford has played in the same 11 as a Lamine Yamal, and he showed him up. He's been the guy that's been the most threatening. Even in the Supercopa between Real Madrid and Barcelona this season, at the start of this year, Rashford was deadly. and posing a threat before coming off. He will guarantee you some sort of explosive impact, some sort of, I'm just going to drive at a defense, whether a win a corner or get a shot off. He looks lighter on his feet. He's making decisions earlier. And honestly, I wish that Barcelona make that move permanent, but I just don't really know. I think Manchester United could do with a Rashford in the squad or just around this squad, especially if they're going to finish this season in a top four spot. And if they don't, then why would Marcus Rashford feel inclined to stay at this club that held him back and scrutinized him for so long? Now, the next glow up that we need to talk about is Hugo Ekitike. And you might be thinking, what kind of glow up is that? Well, this is not a glow up that's come from failure. This is a glow up that's come from transition, because Hugo Ekitike has always been, a promised player from being in the PSG ranks all the way to making a move to Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, making a tag team with him and Omar Mamouche up top before Omar Mamouche left him in the January of last season. And then he would still go on to end the season strongly before making a move in the summer to Liverpool. And ever since making that transition from Bundesliga to Premier League, it's been seamless, despite a lot of questions being asked on him, especially coming into a Liverpool side that saw Alexander Isak, who was Premier League proven, taking over. Ekitike has really walked into a Liverpool side coming in as one of their most underrated signings and has proven to everyone that he was the marquee signing that everyone should have, hyped. But they didn't. And it's become well known now that Hugo Ekitike is pretty much the talisman for Liverpool right now, leading them in a lot of the games that they've needed him, scoring important goals. Just the other day, Liverpool played Newcastle the other day, winning 4-1. And in this game, Ekitike would score 2 goals that, not a lot of strikers in football right now would be able to pull off some of these finishes, especially the second one. The second one really caught my eye. It was so nonchalantly done, with like the toe of his boot, that even it caught me off guard as someone watching. Imagine playing in the game. Imagine being the goalkeeper trying to stop this shot. It was a toe poke that didn't even look like Ekitike was lining up for a shot, and it was in the back of the net. Ekitike has pulled off sensational upon sensational finish time and time again this season, and he's elusive. He's confident on the ball. He's got the lanky figure to just hold off a man before driving into space. He's got spatial awareness. He can combine with teammates seamlessly with the likes of Wirtz. Him and Wirtz, they're becoming an underrated duo in the league, especially if Liverpool find some form. They could be the reason why Liverpool secured top 4 football this season, especially after all the doubts that have gone around this squad. And that brace that he scored against Newcastle is just one of the examples. Multiple times this season where he's been deadly, showing hints of a blonde-haired Fernando Torres. I know Ekitike's actual hair isn't blonde, but this guy's coming like Fernando Torres, 07, 08. And one thing that I love about his play is that he's just confident to just receive the ball wherever. He has the technical ability on the feet that you don't really see from a lot of strikers that can be a lot clunkier. They take a touch and it's going 7 yards to the left. Ekitike, he knows exactly how to place the ball. You can tell that he isn't just a striker. He used to play on the wing. He has delicate control, man. You don't see this a lot. He's actually given shades of Alexander Isak. He's a bit more refined, to say the least. And another example recently where he just showed his brilliant ability was Liverpool winning 6-0 against Qarabag in the Champions League, their last group stage game. Ekitike was on show. And that's where you really saw combination play with the likes of Wirtz and a Salah and even a Gakpo. Ekitike just seamlessly moves the ball in between his fellow attackers. And you can tell that his ceiling is just so much higher than a bunch of other strikers in this league. I think he is my favourite striker in the league by far, even as an Arsenal fan. And I think Gyökeres has a lot to show. He's another person this season, or another player that is kind of going through his own glow up, especially in the last 5 games. But I'm not going to go and speak about him too soon, because it's a long way to go, especially because Ekitike has done this from the start of the season up until now, where he's even had an injury midway through the season, come back and just continued this flow. And another player that is kind of having a glow up this season is Enzo Fernandez of Chelsea. And I know this is quite hard for a lot of people to hear, especially because people label Enzo Fernandez as this racist. You know, he was on that bus with them Argentinian players doing the chants to the French national team. But aside from that, you know, that's the Argentinian national team. I'm talking about Enzo Fernandez for Chelsea this season. Multiple times, again, in them, you know, them clutch moments in the game, Enzo Fernandez late run into the box tapping. How many times have we seen it? He is becoming instrumental for this Chelsea side and is coming into his own frame. You know, a frame that was built for him, especially because of the £100 million label that was put on him coming in to Chelsea, especially after just one World Cup tournament where he just absolutely blitzed the competition. No one really knew what Enzo Fernandez was capable of before coming to Chelsea, yet time and time again, he's been doubted. And this season, he's really showing his true abilities. And with 8 league goals this season, he's just showing that he can create these moments that swings the game in Chelsea's favour, especially in a season where they need top 4 finish. They need it, especially with managerial transitions. They've got a new coach now, Liam Rosenior, and Enzo Fernandez needs to be a key midfielder. He needs to not be questioned in the midfield. There's been more questions being asked of Caicedo, but not because of his play, more because of, you know, getting red cards here and there and a couple rash tackles. But Enzo Fernandez has been quite consistent, a constant in this Chelsea side. And I think a game that is the best example for this is when Chelsea played West Ham just the other day, where Enzo Fernandez scored in the 92nd minute of the game. In a game that saw his Chelsea squad actually come back themselves, he was the one that finished it off, the icing on top of the cake. And I think if he just continues in this manner for the rest of the season, this could be the season where he transitions from just another Chelsea midfielder to a serious Chelsea midfielder. You know, one that is actually getting talked about in conversations where he can be compared to other big talisman midfielders in the league. And I'm not going to say names because we don't like to make comparisons right now. But let's just continue to watch Enzo Fernandez unfold. He might end up with like 11 goals in the league by the end of the season. You never know. Now, the next player that I have to talk about is one of my favourite. And it goes without saying that this shouldn't be one of my favourite players because I am an Arsenal fan. His name is Dominic Solanke. And the reason he's one of my favourite players in football and he's having a glow up this season is because this guy, some of his celebrations, they're just amazing. You know, they're all anime inspired. And as someone that is an avid One Piece fan, some of his celebrations, they just make me love the guy even more. But also in recent games for Tottenham Hotspur, he has been a guy that can come onto the pitch, whether it's starting or, you know, coming on as a sub and making impact. In a game just recently against Manchester City, Dominic Solanke would score 2 goals. And despite one of the goals being a bit fluky, you know, looking like he's making a tackle on Mark Gahey that should have kind of been a foul, the second goal was a brilliant scorpion kick that just sealed this draw against Manchester City and kind of put the title in the hands of Arsenal. And I know Tottenham fans don't want to hear that, but this game and these goals by Solanke were instrumental into the agenda of Arsenal winning the league and winning it all this season. They put Arsenal into, you know, the forefront again. And Solanke has just been showing good movement and clinical finishing whenever he's come onto the pitch, especially coming off an injury. In a Tottenham squad that sought to replace him, bringing in Kolo Muani on loan, Solanke has held down his position and established that he is the main guy. It's not Richarlison, it's not Kolo Muani, it's Dominic Solanke, the marquee signing. And I know it could be a bit premature in speaking like this about Dominic Solanke because he's only been featuring in this Tottenham squad since January. He's been out since then. The last game that he played was back in like August of 2025. But coming back into this side, he scored against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. He also scored against Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League. Now he scored twice against Manchester City. It's just been 5 games that he's actually been featured in, yet he's got 2 goals. And he's also just been very important. You can just tell that Tottenham need an actual striker. And he's walked in and he's playing like an actual striker, holding up the ball, getting in behind, being able to finish with 1 or 2 touches. Dominic Solanke is showing that he hasn't really, left. He's picking up where he left off and he's trying to prove the price tag that was put on him when he was brought to Tottenham. And I'm really hoping that he can continue this for Tottenham especially because if he continues to score, then they will keep their manager. And their manager, Thomas Frank, isn't in the best state right now. But these players are going to keep bailing him out, and Dominic Solanke is one of them. And finally, the last player that I'm going to talk about, I know this has been very Premier League centric, but another player that I need to talk about is Federico Dimarco. Now, Federico Dimarco is a wing back that plays for Inter Milan. I know a lot of you should know him for that performance last year in the Champions League against Lamine Yamal. It was semi-final of the Champions League and he was just getting rinsed. He was getting ripped. But time and time again, season after season, Dimarco has been one of Inter Milan's best players. But this season, he's doing something amazing. You know, his stats are through the roof. He's playing better than he ever was. And I don't know why this is. I think it's just he's been given this more free roaming style to just go up on his flank of the pitch and contribute to this Inter Milan side. But in terms of contributing, he has been grabbing a bucket and getting goals and assists. In 21 matches, he has 5 goals and 8 assists. And whether it's from left back, left wing back or left midfield, this guy can be a threat for this Inter Milan side. And I think he's actually been playing a lot of these games as kind of like a left midfielder in this Inter Milan squad. But still, like, he scored big goals this season. He grabbed a goal against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League for Inter. He also scored against Napoli, I'm pretty sure, this season too. And right now, he's not just this overlapping wing back. He is a chance generator. He's one of the best, wing backs in football right now. And it's weird because when a lot of people see Dimarco, they don't realize that this guy is not 35. He's not at the end of his career. He's at the peak of it. He's 28 years old in this Inter Milan side, producing some of the best crosses you'll ever see. You inject him into any of the top sides in football right now, and they could do with a left back of this quality. Imagine him in the Real Madrid side. He would be overlapping Vinny Jr. on that left side every single time he got the ball. He's reminding me of prime Spinazzola. That overlaps that he was doing, Spinazzola. But Dimarco, different level. Like, he's technically brilliant on the feet too. And I think the only, thing you can kind of say that's maybe bad about him is his defensive, abilities one-on-one. But when you put him in a system in this Inter Milan side that most of the time has 3 centre-backs, Dimarco is shielded. He's shielded enough to the point where he can enjoy the glitz and the glamour of attacking, but also be the man in the back. Last minute challenges, being there when his team need him. Dimarco can do that. I just wanted to highlight Dimarco because it's actually kind of like a standout season for him. He's one of Inter Milan's best players, despite Lautaro Martinez being up there as, I think, the top goal scorer in the Serie A. I think Dimarco has probably played better than him as an Inter Milan player this season, and that's just my opinion from the small amount of games that I've seen. But that's the last glow up in football that we're going to talk about in this video, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this longer form ball discussion by Jib Rules 101. Of course, Brookinho was here. he didn't really make a contribution, and I don't know why. I actually don't know why. I think he's more of a Prem infused, football analyst, so he doesn't really get involved in these long discussions. But you guys let me know if there's any other players that are having a glow up this season that need to be spoken about in another ball discussion. And of course, leave a like on this video, subscribe to this channel for more, lower quality stuff like this. But, this is where I'm going to be just talking ball and try my best to produce as much as possible. Of course, this has been Jib Rules 101. Stay safe, stay blessed, and you.